It's early exchange, and we're still looking at news, trending across the world. And we're being joined by another wise man. That's our in-house analyst. Idauza, glad you have been joining us once again.
Femi, good morning, blessing. Good morning.
Good morning,
You're looking
sir.
bright,
Good morning,
as
Nigeria.
usual, as you've always done.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And we need to say happy International
Peace
Day
Day.
of Peace. Because
Oh,
we
yes,
said
without
that
peace, there
Sam,
cannot be progress.
at all.
So we
And
started.
I'm happy that we are making some progress.
Great,
Yes.
great. So we started our news analysis with the International Day of Peace. So let's continue with the news about the president ringing the closing bell at NASDAQ in New York, a key moment in the executive business dialogue fostering economic ties between the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Nigerian Exchange Group, and Nigerian Investment Promotion Council. Yesterday, our president made history. He's Idauza, being the first president to do that. How remarkable is this?
I think it's quite awesome. And in the last few months, seeing the president taking the lead on how to actually woo investors to come to Nigeria to do business for me is quite remarkable. And of course, being the first black African president to be at the closing bell of NSDAQ yesterday is also very, very significant. And of course, the president used the occasion to tell the business community in America that Nigeria is open for business. Not just open for business, that all the bottlenecks that have made business either difficult are being now removed. That of course we have ended subsidy, the floating naira is on, and people who come to Nigeria to do business, they can bring in their money and take their money out at any time. And that promise was quite significant. Because if you look at the real reason why a lot of people are not coming to Nigeria, especially in the last 8 years, was the difficulty in repatriating profits. So you do business in a country and you cannot take your money out. And these have really hindered the inflow of foreign direct investment. Because anybody who's coming to Nigeria to do business want to make profits and take it back home. But here the president was there at the closing bell yesterday and he said, Nigeria is open. You can come here, do business, make profit, take it back to your country. All those bottlenecks are being removed and we are ready to be as competitive as any country in the world.
Yes, and I think that the president being given the opportunity to ring the closing bell at NASDAQ shows the respect that the international community, particularly US and NASDAQ, has for President Tinubu, because it wasn't just a thing of coincidence or let's just allow him to do this. It must have been as a mark of honor to say that, oh, we appreciate you. And over the course of the meeting, the discussions that have been on the table, there's been respect from one side to the other to say, I respect what you've put forward. And so it's very good. And I like the fact that his visits are very intentional. It is not just a visit to say, oh, I'm the new president of Nigeria, so I'm just going around to show my face. It's going into certain areas where there are plans to attract business opportunities to Nigeria. Now, this is very key for the capital market because in July 2023, the NGX recorded a decrease in foreign investment. So meetings like this, the president being at NASDAQ, gives the NGX the opportunity to put forward to investors certain companies that they can invest. It's like, oh, we've had a decrease, so this is an opportunity for us to talk about you coming back and investing. And so as a Nigerian, I can't just help but say I'm proud of what President Tinubu has done in this regard. In the past, when we see our presidents traveling out of the country, Nigerians are worried that you're spending taxpayers' money globetrotting, so to speak. But this cannot be said to be globetrotting. It's a necessity, and it's a very key one, and I like how intentional it is.
Yeah, we're days and weeks to come, we will be seeing the fallout of these meetings, because I know that they are very critical private meetings that also will speak to the economy and see how many people can begin to regain confidence in the economy of Nigeria. And then, of course, we also expect some boom in the Nigerian Security Exchange Commission as a result of this very important assignment that the president went to do. Yes, it was a General Assembly meeting, but of course, the president is concerned so much about how to drive the economy of Nigeria to see how we can collectively, as a nation, begin to enjoy prosperity that comes from business successes.
That's great. Our president is making us proud.
Yes.
And we hope he will continue in that light. All right, let's move on. Nigeria has welcomed back 155 of its citizens who has been residing in Libya. The returnees, consisting of 14 males, 110 females, 20 children, and 8 infants, were airlifted back to their home country through a coordinated effort between the federal government and the International Organization for Migration. We had 155 Nigerians. You know, in this age where Japa is the trend, is popular, I'd expected, you know, people to have gone to the usual places, UK, US, Canada. That's what's in the vogue.
Oh,
But
these are trapped.
These people had gone to Libya.
They are trapped.
They didn't travel there recently.
They are not going to Libya. They are actually looking for backdoor into Europe. That's the real truth. So you see, a lot of all these people, they see it easier to use the back door to cross the body of water into Spain or Italy. But you see, this very illicit trade has been on for a very long time. And so you see, between Libya, you have a whole lot of Nigeria, and many of them have even lost their life because of the torture, because they are all illegal activity. So they are not real lawful migrants. And I think this speaks to the fact that we really need to enlighten our people that there's no green grass anywhere. People water their grass to be green. And if we don't deliberately do this as a people, we will continue to see this happen from time to time, because this, of course, is a cost to the nation. Because by the time you are living there, and the nation look irresponsible. But the truth of the matter is that you really don't consult the nation when you are doing these illegal moves. And I think our young people must realize that those countries we want to go to, in Europe, in America, in Asia, were built by their citizens. And we have a responsibility as a people to build our own nation. We need to be able to unleash our creativity to see how we can use it to better the life of our people. Now, a whole lot of suffering has gone in here. A whole lot of torture. In short, of course, some Libya security men are really heartless. And we have had cases in the past where many of them are subjected to sexual abuse, and the rest of them, especially the female. So this is not really right for us. And of course, you know, like they say, some countries are also opening this small door to get cheap labor. Because they deliberately allow illegal immigrants because they have no right. When they are oppressed, they can't go to the police. So they can actually be exploited. And I think our people must be educated that if they need to even travel to seek greener pasture, they should do it legitimately rather than subject themselves to this kind of treatment.
Yeah, and this should also go to those who are planning to embark on such a trip, that it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all, because the trauma that comes from such experience, you really can't imagine it. For this set of returnees, we have 14 males, 110 females, 23 children, and 8 infants. Now, though we do not know exactly, but you can actually guess, and imagine. I'm sure the guess will be correct, that these infants were born to Libyans. These infants were born by women who were subjected to all forms of sexual exploitation and torture, dehumanization. So imagine children born in that condition. Imagine women who have been subjected to that condition. Now, if you think as a woman that the condition in which you were in Nigeria was bad because there were not enough economic opportunities available to you, and you go through something like this, you come back with nothing. Imagine starting, this is not even from square one as they say, it's square zero. Because you have the traumatic experience to deal with. You have a child to cater for in addition to yourself. And then you're also trying to find your feet back. So it's not a worthwhile experience. It's not a worthwhile venture. While people want to seek opportunities, while people are desperate, there's a way you can turn your desperation into creativity. The money with which you embarked on that trip, trying to cross from Libya to whatever country and then to Europe, couldn't you have started something with it? Yes, you may have one or two success stories, but how many are they? How many persons live to tell the ordeal that they go through? I have seen firsthand returnees tell their story, and I bet you it is not a good one. It's not one that you even want to listen to.
Yes. You see, I think it was sometime in August. I was in the UAE, and I came out in my hotel, and I saw my friend, and I said, "What are you doing outside?" And he said, "Look, I just saw two young Nigerians, one 16, the other 21. And I said, "What are they doing?" And he said, "Oh, they are coming to hustle." I said, "Hustle what? In the hotel this hour of the night, 2 a.m.? So, having to interact with these young ladies, they discovered that they have a Nigerian who actually brought them to UAE for prostitution. And they send them out, collect their phone, collect everything that belonged to them to go and stay outside. And this is the same exact thing we spoke about the last time we're talking about slave trade and slave trading. And I think we also must be able to identify some of these people who are trafficking in humans. Many of them are Nigerians, selling fellow Nigerians to sell slaves. This is dehumanizing, is not acceptable. And I think Nigerians should make even a very serious law that these people, when they are caught, they should be made to face very serious consequences that will deter others who even subject to the extent that they even take their pants and take their body part, their hair, to native doctor to threaten these people so that they cannot even speak out in this terrible state that they find themselves. And I was saying, the lady was saying, oh, they took them to somewhere in Sharjah to even go and give them to secret court boys to threaten them that if you misbehave in this country, your life will be gone. Young girls who should be in school, and they are being exploited in the name that, come, I'll take you to abroad.
The parents, are not left out in this circle of blame, because some parents encourage it. Because you've seen the child of your neighbor or someone you know travel through such routes and they made it. Do you know what they had to go through? Do you know how they were able to succeed? Now, even if they did, maybe by a streak of luck, we'll just be lucky. So it's something that we all must worry about. It's something we all must discourage at every level. The media will do its job, as we're doing, by talking about it. But then it rests on the society to take the decision and say, we will not encourage this. If you go to certain motor parks in different parts of the country, you will find these people still wanting to board at nighttime.
That's what
wanting
amazes
to travel.
me. Yeah.
It doesn't discourage them. It's like people don't learn from the experiences of others. They want to test the waters first and know what it's like. That's if you live to tell the story.
Yeah, but you see, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and he said to me, you see, if you can't make it here, it's likely going to be difficult for you to make it elsewhere. You see, because even there, what we talk about, many people really cannot survive the rigor of work to really be prosperous. I've seen Nigerians across, and you'll be wondering that, oh, this person is also abroad. Because not everybody is as lucky. And I think we must continue to, say these things so that people will learn the lesson that we can really prosper and live well here where you have all your rights, where you have all your liberty. You know, especially that body of water they are crossing into Spain, a lot of Nigerians had lost their life. Boat accidents inside the water. And you know, they are also thinking, and of course, they are chasing them here and there, and it's not really what a human being should experience. We welcome them back to Nigeria, and we hope that they have learned some good lessons, and then, of course, make their life meaningful to their families.
And we hope with this example, it will deter us from taking this route, because it should be a good lesson. All right. Let's move on to the story on the Standard Organization of Nigeria, where the Director General of the organization has advised manufacturers to standardize their products and ensure quality assurance to boost economic growth, particularly in promoting exports. Now, the Director General is emphasizing on the need to standardize products. You know, the Standard Organization of Nigeria is officially designated to oversee that task. Talk to us, how has SON been faring when it comes to ensuring compliance to standard and then quality assurance in Nigeria?
Well, I don't know how SON enforces their mandate to ensure that goods produced in Nigeria meets some certain level of standard, which is very important, and that's also what guarantees our competitiveness. You know, you see goods that are produced for Asia, you see goods that are produced for Americans, you see goods that are produced for Europe. They have a uniform standard. And I think SON needs to really up their game, because there are a whole lot of substandard products around us. They are everywhere. And this is because, again, whether it's the chick before the hen or the egg before the chick, really you can't tell here. Because it also speaks to the real concern of people. And I feel that a whole lot of things should be accessible. I don't know how accessible SON is as a standard organization. And I don't really think that it should actually be a revenue center. Just like NAFDAC, where people find it very difficult to be able to get a number to run a business. Now, if I want to do a small business that will cost me like 200,000 and I need to cough out 500,000 to go and do NAFDAC and then cough out another money to go and do some, I will better hide under my shed and do it without getting a number. And I think these are issues that, of course, also SON must also address critically, because the issue of standard and quality is very important to a nation. Because these issues are not really with the multinationals, they are more with SMEs and small-scale producers who are not able to access these services. I was speaking about 3 days ago with a Rwandese, and we're talking about e-governance, and he was talking to me, and he said to me, he said, look, any service, for example, a citizen want to get from Rwanda with a USD code, they access it. And he even told me, and he said, you want a passport as a Rwandese, you don't need internet, it's a USD code. You send that USD code this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, your passport is ready. And I think this is where the government in Nigeria need really to embrace technology to drive this process. Because if people can access these services, we don't need to do this campaign a lot. Because if you don't make it too expensive for people to access, you see you get to that point where people get to want to register, they send their code, then of course the agency come to inspect and be sure that the quality and standards are met. So you have a win-win situation. But when you make access very difficult, of course citizens don't know how to get to you, and they are producing their thing locally, and then of course endangering the life of fellow citizens. So I think some need to really do a lot in terms of accessibility.
Yes, and I think even the number for NAFDAC that is given, it should be, the way to verify that number should be made public to everybody, and it should be something that is easy. Because you find a product carrying NAFDAC number, how do you know that number is genuine to begin with? We just assume, we just go by faith, so to speak, believing that the NAFDAC number is genuine. Because some of them even fake the NAFDAC number on their products. But I agree totally with Idahosa that if the access to getting products approved becomes very easy, then you have a lot of local manufacturers go through the process. Yes, there may be those who for some reasons want to cut corners, who do not want to have their products verified because they know that they do not want to comply with the requirements. But there are those who truly want to, but it's out of their reach. Now, there's an SME, there's a local manufacturer. She was manufacturing this yogurt product and some. But the challenge that she had when she brought her business proposal was that she has not been able to get secure NAFDAC verification because she's not been able to put the money together. Now, for people like that becomes a problem.
It is. It is. You see, because, and I think this is a really big problem in Nigeria, because almost every government agency has become a revenue center. So all we are interested in is how to collect revenue. But I think this is a much more than collecting revenue. You see, because standard is important. Now, if you don't have quality assurance for the product that you make in a country, of course, if it can be sold here, but it can't cross our border, because if you enter into the next door neighbor, it will be rejected. And no country can grow by itself. And I think this is important. So we must be sure also to even make requirements very clear enough that people can access it. And go to, for example, to a standard organization website, and you are able to actually assess what requirements is needed to make a basic product.
I read a report where some business owners even go as far as meeting some of these manufacturers to give them the specifications of these substandard products, whereby they willingly, in fact, make requests for those things with the impression that when they get to this end, it is cheaper, it is affordable, they can make more money from it. And you discover that this has been a trend. This is why this is a wake-up call to the Standard Organization of Nigeria, not just in the name. Of course, that organization is doing its best, but there's still more to be done to ensure that people comply to standard, because you can't compromise standard when it comes to safety, when it comes to health, when it comes to well-being, because in the whole, it makes us look as if we're a disorganized organization. And that's why it's important for the agencies that are involved to do the policing. It's not the absence of regulations or law agencies, but where the challenge is the area of enforcement to ensure that these producers and even business owners comply to the standard.
Yeah, but I think also to speak to Nigerians that we must be lawful people. We should not be lawbreakers.
Yes.
Yeah, that must sink into our head, that what exalts a nation is righteousness. Sin is a reproach to any people.
And where there is sin, because there is law, the enforcement of the law will whip people back in line. I think we should do scraping. We should get maybe a bigger cane for the sinners.
Oh yes. Yeah, you see, because really it is important. You see, teaching and training people on corruption measures. One of the issues that we talk about is the fraud triangle. Fraud triangle. At the top, you have, a pressure. At the base, you have opportunity. And at the other base, you have rationalization. Now, if person is under pressure, and then, of course, he has an opportunity, the next critical question to answer is, if I do it, what's the consequence? Now, if you weigh the consequence and the gain from what you are going to do, and the consequence is just small, that becomes a motivation to go into that crime. So you see here is that there's always a pressure to do business, and then you have opportunity to hide and do it. Now the gain is, if I'm caught, what happened? Oh, probably if I make 20 million and then I give 10 million to the relevant agencies, at least I'm still smiling to bank with 10 million. It becomes a motivation to commit crime. And I think that is where we really need to emphasize that the consequences of infractions and violations of our law be so stringent that people are afraid to commit the crime. There will be no longer rationalization, whether you're under pressure or you have opportunity to do crime.
As we wrap up, let's quickly look at the story from Osun State, which has to do with the Ooni of Ife, which he has allocated 250 million to support SMEs in that state. We have a station here where government is expected to do everything, but we have an individual coming up now, interestingly, a traditional ruler, taking up this initiative. What do you think will be the impact on that state and a lesson for other traditional leaders?
Oh, I think that's great. That's great. And thumb up to the Ooni of Ife for that initiative, to see how he is also making his own contribution in his own little way to get some people off the street. And I think a whole lot of Nigerians needs to do this. Not just traditional rulers. Those whom God has blessed, you also know that the resources that have been given to them is not just for their consumption alone. About 3 days ago, we spoke about Dangote Group also doing same somewhere in Kogi State, trying to see how to trace some people to be able to do stuff. And I think this is really required. We need a whole lot of volunteer. Government cannot do this alone. Government cannot give every single Nigerian job. Government cannot train every single Nigerian. Now, what we must do as a people, no matter how small it is, we should be able to intervene. We should have people who give scholarship to children who are on the street. Take them off street, because the more of this we do, the more we can go to bed with our eyes closed.
With both eyes closed.
With both eyes closed. All right. What a way to wrap up this news analysis. Thank you for sharing your thoughts as usual.